Can you imagine Italian food without tomatoes? Or Ireland without potatoes? Or Thailand without hot peppers? Or South America with no bananas? Well, before Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, none of those things would have been possible. And all of those things became possible through something we now call the Columbian Exchange. Basically, if you consider like the old world, like Europe and Asia and places like that, and the new world, North and South America, basically, what happened is after Columbus sailed across the ocean and Europeans started figuring out there was something else over there that wasn't Asia, and they started going there a lot more often, they started bringing things back from the Americas and taking some things there. So, for example, let's take a look at some of the products that came from the Americas to Europe and Asia and the rest of the world. So, for example, it says New World, and please forgive me using Wikipedia. Sometimes it's good for a lot of things, and in this case, I think it's definitely good. So let's take a look at what they say here. So this says New World native plants, clockwise from top left. So number one is maize or corn. So corn comes from the Americas. Tomato. So there were no tomatoes in Europe before 1492 or before the 1500s, really. When tomatoes were first brought over to Italy, they resisted them. They thought they were maybe poisonous. They weren't sure. Some wealthy people were kind of growing them in their gardens, but it took a long time for the tomato to be accepted in Italy. And what we think of Italy now is so interesting. We think of Italian food having that tomato sauce as a base. And we think of like that festival where they throw tomatoes at each other. And that's what we think of as Italian culture nowadays, at least in the United States, from a cursory perspective. And so we kind of look at Italian culture as not based on the tomato, but the tomato is a big part of it. And it is right now. But if we want to look at the history of Italy and the history of Rome and stuff like that, like ancient Romans were not eating tomatoes. So if you want to eat like an ancient Roman, when you have a Roma tomato or a tomato at all, it has nothing to do with ancient Rome or Italy before the 1500s. And I think that kind of perspective is really interesting. The quote, old and new worlds kind of gave a lot of things to each other, and now we enjoy the benefits of that. And I think we're really lucky to live in a time where we can drink coffee and have a banana right after that. And I think these kind of perspective shifts are really interesting and important for us in terms of having a more accurate view of the past and our history and how the world is and how the world was and what we're doing here. And so the tomatoes one, also the potato is from the New World. So there were no potatoes in Ireland before this Columbian Exchange. Vanilla is from the New World. My mom used to always get the best vanilla from Mexico, so that comes from the Americas as well. The rubber tree, or at least one version of it. I know Thailand grows a lot of rubber trees, but I'm not sure if that came from the Columbian Exchange or if they have another species there. Cacao, or chocolate, comes from the Americas. Thanks, Americas, for that. I love chocolate, especially 80% dark chocolate. And tobacco. Not sure if we should say thank you for that one or not, but that came from the Americas as well. Old World native plants. First is citrus. Number two is the apple. Number three, and this one really surprised me, the banana. So right now, I think most of the world's bananas, if not the ones that we get in the United States at least, are grown in Central and South America, right? And so it really surprised me that bananas actually originated in, quote, the old world and were brought over to the new world from the old world. Mango, and when I was in Thailand, I got to enjoy a lot of great mangoes, so that actually doesn't surprise me that it comes from there. Onions, coffee. Coffee actually comes from the old world, and that surprises me because I've been to Colombia and I've probably had the best coffee of my life in Colombia. I think Colombia is very well suited to growing really good coffee, and there's a lot of other places in Central and South America that are great for growing coffee as well. And so it's actually kind of surprising to me that coffee came from the old world and it was brought to the new world. So that's one that's pretty interesting as well. And actually, if you look at the history of coffee, it's very interesting. So that might be another thing that you can check out. Even on Wikipedia, if you check out the history of coffee, it's pretty interesting. So give that a look if you haven't already. And also, there's a couple of really good books. One is called 1491, and the other is called 1493. And those are two books written by the same author about the New World or the Americas before Columbus came over to the Americas, and then 1493 is about kind of what happened after that. So those are two really great books that I highly recommend if you want to learn more about this subject. And then the last two are wheat and rice both came from the Old World as well. So corn originated in the Americas, so did chocolate, so did tobacco, and then potatoes and tomatoes and hot peppers, I have to say. So in Thailand, before this Columbian exchange, this is really interesting. Right now, the pepper is a big part of Thai cuisine. However, before the Columbian exchange, they didn't have those hot peppers in Thailand. And this is especially interesting for me because I lived there for a while, and that's why I'm talking about it. So before the Columbian exchange, Thai dishes used just black pepper. So they had black pepper before the Columbian exchange, but they didn't have any of the hot peppers that we know Thai cuisine for today. And so again, if you want to think about like what is ancient Thai cuisine, what is real Thai culture, Thai cuisine, what is real Italian culture, what is real Irish culture? What are these things based on? What did they eat in Italy back in the day? Well, in Italy, they didn't eat tomatoes. In Thailand, they didn't have spicy peppers. They just had black pepper. In Ireland, there was no potatoes. So a lot of those associations that we have now have really nothing to do with the past at all. And if you want to try a dish from ancient Thailand or ancient Rome or ancient Ireland, it's going to be something a lot different than you might think. And I think that's really interesting. So that's why I brought up the Columbian Exchange today. And every single morning, I'm going to offer you a little intellectual dark chocolate like this to have with your morning coffee or as you get ready for work or school at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And I hope to see you for the next one as well. I'm Jim Wolf, and I'll talk to you later.